My fiancé said, I just need space to try things with someone new. So I packed my stuff, moved to a new city, and never looked back. Months later, she started blowing up my phone, and her parents showed up crying, begging me to see her. But I just looked at them and said, she picked her path. Then I closed the door. I thought walking away was the hardest part. I was wrong. The real battle began when my ex decided to rewrite our story, turning me into the villain and pulling everyone I loved into her twisted narrative. The air used to hum with comfortable silence in our apartment in Atlanta, a quiet promise of a future I believed in. But then one weekend, a subtle shift occurred, like the last leaf falling before a brutal winter. I was 29, and I'd finally built a life that felt solid, a good job, a decent place, friends who stuck around. And Chloe, my fiancée. For years together, two living under the same roof. I genuinely thought I knew her. We were that couple, the solid ones, matching flannel at cookouts, hosting game nights, even whispering baby names over dirty dishes. Maybe it wasn't constant fireworks, but it was stable. And I thought stability was the point. Turns out, stability only matters until someone gets bored. It truly started the weekend after my birthday. Chloe's parents, Eleanor and Robert, came to visit. They were always polished. Eleanor wore pearls even when we were making spaghetti. Robert, ex-military, moved like he ironed his socks. They never explicitly said they disliked me, but there was this polite dismissal, like they were visiting their daughter in a college dorm, not the home she shared with the man she was marrying. This weekend, though, something felt off. Eleanor kept pressing. Have you two thought more about the wedding date? You're not getting any younger, darling. Each time, Chloe just gave a vague, nervous laugh and a shrug. I figured she was overwhelmed. We hadn't set a date, but it wasn't a red flag. We were just saving up. Weddings are expensive. Logical, right? That night, after they left, I found Chloe on the couch, glued to her phone. She didn't even glance up when I sat beside her. You good? I asked. She locked her screen, a little too quickly. Yeah, just tired. And that was that. But after that weekend, things changed. Nothing dramatic, just a collection of small shifts. She started working later. Then came excuses for skipping dinner. The way she'd angle her phone away from me. You know how your gut whispers before your brain catches up? Mine was screaming. I just wasn't ready to listen. The real punch landed 2 weeks later. We were on opposite ends of the couch. I'd poured us both red wine, a ritual we used to reconnect. I handed her the glass, but instead of clinking it against mine, she just stared into it. I think we need to talk, she said. My heart did that sickening twist. You know, when your stomach plummets before they've even finished the sentence. I knew, but I still hoped. Maybe she needed space. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe she wanted to postpone the wedding. I could handle any of that. Except what came next. I feel like I haven't explored enough, she said, her voice unnervingly calm. Like I jumped into this too young. I've never been with anyone else. I cut her off, trying to keep my voice steady. What are you saying, Chloe? She looked at me with eyes that weren't hers. Cold. Distant. Like I was a chore on her to-do list. I need space to explore things with someone new. You know how in movies, the guy yells, throws a glass, demands answers? I didn't. I just sat there, watching her, a stranger in my living room. Part of me just shut off. I nodded, walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, and started packing. She followed, her voice finally trembling. Liam, wait. I'm not saying this is forever. Can't we pause things for a while? I just need time. I zipped the suitcase. You're asking for time to cheat. It's not cheating if we're on a break. We're not on a break, I said. We're done. I didn't sleep that night. I drove straight to my friend Daniel's place across Atlanta and crashed on his couch. The next day, I filed for a lease transfer and told my boss I was taking a week off. By the end of that week, my stuff was packed, my ties to the city were cut, and I moved 3 hours north to Asheville, North Carolina. To a place where no one knew my name. No explanation, no closure. Just gone. Chloe tried calling a few times, but I blocked her. Then came the guilt-ridden texts. I miss you. I think I made a mistake. I deleted them without reading past the previews. She'd made her choice, so I made mine. For a few months, it was quiet. I started over in that small lakeside town, got a job editing videos, met new people, hiked on weekends, even started learning to cook more than pasta. It felt like breathing again for the first time in years. Then, 6 months to the day since I'd left, a knock on my door. I assumed it was the mail carrier. But when I opened it, I froze. Standing there were Eleanor and Robert. Robert, stiff as ever in his blazer. Eleanor, red-eyed, clutching a tissue. Liam, she said, her voice breaking. Please, just hear us out. I said nothing, just stared. She's not eating, Robert added. She's been in therapy. She realizes she made a huge mistake. I looked at their desperate faces. The irony stung. The same people who'd once looked right through me were now begging me to step back into their daughter's life. She made her choice, I said, and I shut the door. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. What I didn't know then was Chloe wasn't giving up. And what came next wasn't just messy. It was war. They didn't leave immediately. I stood with my back against the door, listening as Robert knocked again, sharp, controlled, like a man used to getting his way. Eleanor mumbled something, probably trying to get him to leave. Eventually, I heard footsteps fading and the soft crunch of gravel as their car pulled away. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but there was nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a strange, hollow quiet, like I'd finally closed the last open window in a house I used to live in. That night, I made steak. I overcooked it, but it was mine. I sat on the couch, put on a documentary I didn't watch, and muted every notification on my phone. A few hours later, I glanced at the screen out of habit. 37 missed messages. 5 from unknown numbers, 6 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. I didn't even open the app. That was the calm before everything started to unravel. The first sign came from my friend Daniel. He texted out of the blue, "Hey man, you good? Heard Chloe showed up in Asheville." I blinked. How the hell did he know that? I called him immediately. "What do you mean she showed up?" "In my town. She's been posting stuff online," he said. Cryptic captions, sad selfies by the lake, things like that. People figured it out. She even tagged a bookstore near your apartment. "You think she's trying to find you?" I checked her account, one I hadn't looked at in half a year. Sure enough, there she was, sipping coffee 2 blocks from where I lived. Caption, starting over. Sometimes you have to go back to move forward. I blocked her again, but my gut was already churning. The next week, she ran into me at the grocery store. I was grabbing produce when I heard someone say my name like they'd rehearsed it. Liam. I turned. And there she was. Chloe. Hair curled like she used to wear it on special nights. That same sad, hopeful smile from when we first started dating. She was holding oat milk, which I knew she didn't drink. "Wow," she said. "I didn't think I'd actually run into you." "You posted a photo from the cafe next to my building," I said flatly. She blinked, her smile flickering. "I didn't think you'd see it." I didn't. My friend did. We stood in that aisle for a full minute, surrounded by potatoes and awkward silence. "I've been in therapy," she finally said, like it was supposed to explain everything. "And I've realized a lot about myself, about us." I was scared. I thought I needed to figure things out by stepping away, but "You don't owe me an explanation," I cut in. "You made your choice." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but I turned and walked away. That should have been it. But it wasn't. A few days later, an email arrived. Not from Chloe. This time, from Eleanor. "Liam, I don't mean to bother you, but I think you're being unnecessarily cruel. Chloe made a mistake, but haven't we all? You've always been the kind, rational one. I expected more grace from you." That word, grace, made my skin crawl, as if I was unreasonable for not welcoming her back after being tossed aside like a placeholder. I didn't respond, but the messages kept coming. One from Robert, then Chloe again, then a string of friend requests on all my social media from names I didn't recognize. Daniel called again. "You might want to check Reddit," he said. Sure enough, there it was, a post under r/true off my chest by a throwaway account titled, "I ruined the best relationship of my life, and I don't know how to fix it." It didn't name me directly, but every detail was there: my job, the town I moved to, how we met. It painted her as lost and confused, someone who panicked under commitment pressure and briefly explored a new connection before realizing what she'd truly lost. The comments were full of sympathy. "You sound so brave, just keep trying. He'll see your growth. You didn't cheat. You were honest. If he loved you, he'd come back." One even said, "Honestly, he sounds emotionally immature for just ghosting you." My jaw tightened. I didn't ghost her. I protected myself. I took the blow and walked away without burning down the house. And now? Now I was being painted as the villain because I didn't want to re-enter a burning building. That was my breaking point. I called my landlord and switched to a new unit in the complex off the main road, not visible from the street. I moved everything the next day. That weekend, I deactivated every account she might find. Scrutinized my LinkedIn, made all my social media private, deleted old photos. I stopped checking group chats where her friends might lurk. I even switched coffee shops. But somehow, it still wasn't enough. A month later, my mother called. To understand why this mattered, you need to know about my family. We were tight-knit, middle class. My mom and dad, high school sweethearts, worked hard, loved harder, and believed in forgiveness to a fault. They liked Chloe a lot. She came to holidays, made pies with my mom, helped my dad build shelves. When we broke up, I told them a version of the truth, omitting the worst parts. I didn't want them to hate her. I just said we grew apart. So, when my mom called, her voice cautious, I braced myself. "Honey," she said, "I had a visit from someone today." My stomach dropped. "Please don't say it was Chloe." She drove down. Said she just needed to talk to me. Said she couldn't get through to you. I closed my eyes. "Mom, I told you." She cried, "Liam. She told me you won't even speak to her. That she's in a dark place. That she doesn't feel safe being alone." I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to keep my voice calm. "She's manipulating you." She didn't seem like she was acting. Of course, she didn't. That's how she works. Mom was quiet for a long beat. I don't understand. You were always so forgiving." And there it was. That word again. Forgiving. As if I owed it to the people who hurt me to put myself back in their reach. "She left me, Mom," I said. She told me to my face she wanted to explore being with someone else. And now that it didn't work out, I'm supposed to pretend like it never happened. "I just want you to be happy." "I am happy," I said, and I meant it. But it didn't matter. The seed had been planted, and not just in my mom. Over the next few weeks, weird messages started coming from extended family. My cousin Sarah DM'd me, "Did you really abandon Chloe without talking things through?" My uncle sent a chain email about forgiveness and second chances. It was like she was slowly turning the people in my life against me. People I hadn't even realized were reachable. She weaponized empathy, played the victim perfectly, and everyone fell for it. Everyone except Daniel. He called one night. "You need to draw blood, man." Not literally, but you can't keep being passive. You either shut this down publicly, or she's going to rewrite the whole story. I didn't want drama. I didn't want revenge. But I did want peace. So I wrote a post. Not to drag her name through the mud, not to humiliate, just to reclaim the truth. I posted it under an anonymous account, laying out the timeline. No insults, no exaggeration, just facts, dates, screenshots. A calm, clear breakdown of how someone can say they love you, then walk away the second it becomes inconvenient. And how manipulative it is to crawl back only when their exploration didn't pan out. It went viral. Thousands of upvotes, comments pouring in, people sharing their own stories of similar betrayals. I didn't respond to any of them. I just watched. 2 days later, Chloe deleted her post. 3 days after that, her Reddit account vanished. But that wasn't the end. Just when I thought I'd finally put it all to rest, when the air started to feel still again, I got another message. This one wasn't from Chloe. It was from her new boyfriend. And what he sent me, it changed everything. The message came late, around midnight on a Thursday. I was brushing my teeth, half asleep, when my phone buzzed. It was an Instagram DM request from a name I didn't recognize, Benjamin S. Hey, I think we should talk. I'm Chloe's boyfriend. Or was. Just wanted to give you a heads up. She's not who she pretends to be. I stared at it, then tossed the phone onto the bed and tried to sleep. I couldn't. My thoughts pinged back and forth. What could he possibly want to tell me? The next morning, I replied, "What are you trying to say?" He messaged back almost instantly. I could tell he'd been waiting. Long story, but you deserve to know what she's been doing behind your back. Can I call you? I hesitated. I didn't know this guy anything, but I was also tired. Tired of feeling like I was fighting a battle no one else saw. So, I gave him my number. He called 2 minutes later. His voice was low, calm, the kind that had clearly practiced this conversation. He started slow, respectful. Hey Liam, just want to say up front, I'm not trying to start drama. I didn't even know who you were until a week ago. Chloe didn't talk much about you. Not really. She just said you dated and it didn't work out. I stayed quiet. He went on. We met on a dating app a few months after you guys split. She told me she was healing. I believed her. And for a while, things were good. But then little stuff started slipping. She'd leave the room to take calls. She hid her texts. She'd get weird when I asked about her past. It all felt off. He paused. A few weeks ago, I found her old journal. I know I shouldn't have read it, but something in my gut told me to look. And that's when I found your name. A lot. Pages and pages. She never got over you, man. She's obsessed. Still calls you her soulmate. Still talks about getting you back. Only she doesn't call it getting you back. She calls it fixing her narrative. Like your silence is this stain on her story. I sat down on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to my ear, pulse thudding. Here's the thing, he continued. She told me she needed a break 2 weeks ago. Said she wasn't feeling emotionally aligned. I gave her space. Then I saw the Reddit stuff. That post about her ex, the one where she made herself look like the victim. Yeah, I recognized it. I called her out, and she broke down crying. Told me you were her true north. That she made a mistake, but she was going to get you back no matter what it took. Said she'd already gotten your family to soften. I didn't say a word. I didn't have any. I left her that night, Benjamin said. But I figured you deserved to know what's going on. She's not just sad. She's calculating. He thanked me for listening, apologized, and hung up. I sat there for what felt like an hour, staring at the wall. It hit me then, not just what Chloe had done, but how deeply it had wormed into my sense of identity. For months, I'd let her rewrite the story of our relationship. I'd let her guilt echo through my phone calls with family, through the concerned texts from old friends. I had been rebuilding my life, sure, but in the back of my mind, I was still playing defense against a past that refused to let go. That night was the lowest I'd felt since the breakup. And I don't mean dramatic heartbreak. I mean this quiet, gnawing ache, like I'd been carrying a ghost on my back for months without realizing it. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick and sat on my porch in the cold morning air, staring at the lake. For the first time, I let myself feel it all. The betrayal. The anger. The humiliation of being turned into a story someone else got to tell. And then something strange happened. I felt relief. Not peace, not yet. But this clear, unshakable sense that I was finally done being quiet. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a dramatic showdown. I wanted to live, and I wanted to do it loudly. The shift was slow but steady. I started by going back to therapy. I'd tried it briefly after moving, but stopped once things felt manageable. Now I knew I hadn't even scratched the surface. I found a new therapist, someone older, no nonsense. I told her everything, from the breakup to the manipulation to the call with Benjamin. She didn't coddle me. She gave it to me straight. You're allowed to leave people who hurt you, she said. Even if they say they're sorry. Even if everyone around you says otherwise. Especially then. I wrote that down. I started writing down a lot of things. At her suggestion, I started journaling, not about Chloe, but about myself. My wins, my fears, my plans. It felt weird at first, like I was narrating my own life. But then I realized something. I was narrating my own life. For the first time in a long time. Work got better, too. I leaned into my job, took on bigger projects. My boss noticed. A few months later, I got promoted to lead editor. I started mentoring new hires, and it gave me purpose, something outside myself, something that had nothing to do with the past. On weekends, I hiked, not to escape, but to explore. I visited new trails, joined a local outdoor group. That's where I met Brooke. Brooke wasn't flashy. She didn't wear perfect makeup or rehearse her smiles. She laughed with her whole body and talked about books the way most people talk about movies. We didn't start dating right away. In fact, we were just friends for the first 2 months. But it was easy. Real. We'd sit at the edge of a trail and talk about everything from childhood fears to dumb pet names. One afternoon, I told her about Chloe. Not everything, just enough. She didn't judge. She just listened. When we eventually did start dating, it wasn't a firestorm. It was a slow, steady warmth. The kind that didn't burn. It healed. But the rise didn't mean the past stayed buried. One night, about 8 months after I last saw Eleanor and Robert, my mom called again. She sounded different this time, hesitant, but not pushy. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she began. I blinked. For what? For not trusting you. For letting someone else's tears cloud what I know about my son. Turns out, Benjamin had posted his own version of the story a few weeks back. He hadn't used names either, but people connected the dots. My cousin Sarah saw it, shared it with my mom. I just didn't know, she said quietly. I believed what I saw, but I didn't ask you how you felt. That conversation was another turning point. For the first time in a year, I felt like the balance was tipping back in my favor. Over the next few months, I started reconnecting with people I'd quietly distanced myself from. Sarah and I went out for coffee and talked like old times. My uncle, the one who sent that chain email, he wrote me a real apology. And through all of it, I never once reached out to Chloe. I didn't need to. Something deeper had shifted. I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. I wasn't carrying the weight of other people's opinions. I had built something that wasn't about survival. It was about becoming whole again. One night, I was watching Brooke draw in her sketchbook. She liked doodling random scenes from our hikes. And I realized I hadn't thought about Chloe in weeks. Not consciously, not in that aching, bitter way. It didn't mean I forgot. It meant I healed. But just when I thought the story had settled, when life had finally quieted into something peaceful, I got another message from an unknown number, just 2 words. We need to talk. I almost deleted it. But something about the timing, about the fact that everything had finally fallen into place, made me pause. Because what I didn't know was Chloe wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And what she wanted now wasn't closure. It was something far more dangerous. The message just sat there on my screen for a long time. We need to talk. No name, no emojis, just cold text from an unrecognized number. I stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. For a moment, I even considered blocking it and going on with my night like nothing happened. I should have. But part of me, the part that had been rebuilding piece by piece, felt something stir. Not fear. Not even anger. Something sharper. Focus. I didn't reply. Instead, I did what I should have done long ago. I began to prepare. The next morning, I started with the basics. I pulled up my laptop and opened an old folder I hadn't touched since the week I left Atlanta. Inside were screenshots, receipts, voicemails I'd downloaded, even the full text of the Reddit post Chloe had made about me. I had saved them all back when things first started spiraling, when Daniel told me, "Keep your records. You never know how far someone like that will go." I hadn't known then, but now I was glad I listened. Next, I created a new private folder, one for what was about to come. I started documenting the new message, Benjamin's call. I even recorded a voice memo summarizing everything I remembered about Chloe's visit to my mom's house, the messages from her parents, the fallout with my extended family. I wanted a paper trail this time. Not because I was scared of her, but because I refused to be caught off guard again. Later that day, I texted Daniel. "Still think I need to draw blood?" He replied instantly. "Been waiting for you to ask." I met him that evening at a dive bar just off the highway in Asheville. A place with sticky floors and chicken wings so spicy they'd make you rethink your life choices. Daniel was already waiting in the back booth, a worn baseball cap pulled low and a grin that said, "About time." "So," he said, pushing a beer toward me. "You finally ready to play a fence?" "I think she's about to start something again," I said. "And this time, I want to be ready." He leaned back. "You know I'm in. Whatever you need. Just tell me the play." I didn't have one yet, but I had an idea. The first step was gathering intel. I knew Chloe. I knew how she operated. She never made a move unless she thought the odds were stacked in her favor. That message wasn't random. It was bait. And if she thought I was still the same person she could guilt into silence, well, she was in for a surprise. Over the next week, I did some quiet digging. Brooke helped too. She had a background in digital marketing and knew how to track online footprints. Together, we combed through Chloe's public social media, LinkedIn, and even a few Facebook groups where she'd been tagged. Most of it was harmless, performative stuff. Selfies with captions about healing, inspirational quotes about forgiveness, vague references to growth and accountability. But then we found it, a now-deleted post in a private Facebook group for women, Healing from Abandonment. Someone had screenshotted it and reposted it to another forum, criticizing how performative and toxic the original post was. I didn't recognize the username, but the writing, it was her. When a man abandons you without warning, you have every right to reclaim the narrative. Especially if he's made you out to be the villain. Sometimes all it takes is a little reminder of what was lost. A little pressure. A few tears in the right places. I read that line over and over. Brooke looked at me. "She's planning something." "Yeah," I said. "She's going to try and corner me again, but this time she's not just trying to get back together. She wants to ruin whatever I've built since." And that was when the plans started to take shape. The next day, I booked a meeting with a lawyer. Not for anything dramatic, just a consultation. I wanted to know what my rights were, what I could do if someone started spreading false stories about me, whether online or in person. I didn't name Chloe, but the lawyer caught on quickly. She nodded, took notes, and gave me a few tools to keep in my back pocket. "Start by making everything private," she said. "All your accounts, any business-related social media. Change passwords. Turn on two-factor authentication. And whatever you do, don't delete anything. If she's about to try something, you want the full timeline intact." I did all of it that same night. I even backed up my entire phone photos, messages, call logs, just in case. And then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 days later, Daniel texted me a screenshot of a comment thread he'd found under a local Asheville news article. It was one of those fluff pieces about my company sponsoring a community park cleanup. My name had been mentioned just once in passing, but that was enough. Below the article, buried in the comments, was a user account with no profile picture claiming to be an ex of someone at the company. The comment was vague but suggestive. Funny how people can smile in public after the way they treat women, but I guess some abusers get away with it when they have the right friends. I felt my blood go cold. There it was. The opening shot. I checked the account. Brand new. No other comments. But the language was familiar. The phrasing. The weaponized vagueness. It was her style. She knew how to make things seem damning without saying anything outright. Just enough to plant a seed. But she didn't know I'd already planted my own. I took screenshots, logged the URL, then reached out to the news outlet, flagged the comment for defamation, and got it removed within the hour. But the damage had already been attempted. She was escalating, and so was I. I made one final move that week. I wrote a letter. Not to her, but to myself. It was a full, honest breakdown of everything that had happened. From the night she said she wanted to explore things with someone new, to the moment I shut the door in her parents' faces, to the call from Benjamin. I wrote about the manipulation, the way my family had doubted me. And then I wrote about the rebuilding, the therapy, the hikes, the new job, Brooke. At the end, I signed it. Liam Thomas. Not a victim, not a villain. Just a man who finally took the wheel. I sealed the letter in an envelope and tucked it into my desk drawer. Not as evidence. As armor. Because when you know your own story, nobody else gets to rewrite it. The next Saturday, I finally replied to the message. What do you want? The typing bubble appeared almost instantly. Just to talk. One conversation, that's all I'm asking. I took a deep breath. You get 1 hour. Public place. You pick. I'll bring a witness. I expected her to balk, to protest, to argue. But instead, she said, fine. Sunday, 11 a.m. The place where we had our first date. Of course, she picked that place. A little bistro in Atlanta. Classy, nostalgic. A set piece for her performance. That was fine. Because I wasn't going there to forgive. I wasn't going to cave. I was going to end it for good. But what I didn't realize, what I couldn't have known, was that Chloe wasn't coming alone. And what she brought with her would turn everything upside down. The bistro hadn't changed. Same brick facade with ivy clinging to the corners. Same little wrought iron tables with faded green umbrellas. The kind of place that tried hard to be rustic and charming and mostly pulled it off. I remembered our first date here. Chloe wore a sunflower dress. She'd laughed at my corny jokes, and I'd walked her to her car like it was 1952. Back then, it had felt like something real was beginning. Now, it felt like something important was about to end. Brooke came with me, just like I'd said I would bring a witness. We sat in a booth near the front, backs to the wall, facing the entrance. Brooke wasn't just there for emotional backup. She was there to document. Her phone sat on the table, recording with the screen dimmed. Legal in our state, as long as one party knows. And I wanted this entire thing on record. At exactly 10:59 a.m., Chloe walked in. She looked different, more polished than usual, her hair done up, makeup precise. That fake sadness in her eyes that used to fool me. She scanned the restaurant, then spotted me and approached slowly, like a scene from a movie she'd rehearsed 100 times. When she saw Brooke, a flicker of irritation crossed her face. But she hid it well. Liam, she said, forcing a smile. Thanks for meeting. I gestured toward the chair across from me. You have 1 hour. Start talking. She sat down, folding her hands neatly on the table like she was about to present a case. I'm not here to argue. I just want to make peace. I raised an eyebrow. Peace? She nodded. I've done a lot of thinking, therapy, soul-searching, and I realized I needed to take responsibility for how I hurt you, for how I let fear control me. Brooke leaned in slightly, her expression unreadable. I waited. Chloe continued. But I also need you to understand that I was hurting too. I never meant to damage your life. And some of the things you said about me online, well, they weren't fair either. There it was. The shift. The attempt to flip the guilt, to turn the conversation toward her being misrepresented. A passive-aggressive way to say, you didn't have to fight back. I didn't lie, I said calmly. Everything I said was true. You didn't deny it either. She exhaled dramatically. Still, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want closure. I want us to part with understanding, not resentment. Brooke tilted her head slightly. So, why try to smear him online? The comment under the news article. The Facebook group post. You didn't come here for closure, Chloe. You came here because people started seeing through you. The mask cracked for a second. Just a second. But I saw it. I don't know what you're talking about, Chloe said coolly. This is about healing, not accusations. You want healing? I said, then stop trying to control the narrative. Stop playing the victim. You made your choice. And when the consequences showed up, you tried to rewrite the story so you wouldn't have to sit in the mess you made. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. You turned my own family against me. You used their compassion to paint me as cold and unforgiving. You manipulated strangers online to feel sorry for you. And when you're little, exploration didn't work out, you came crawling back, not because you loved me, but because I refused to play along. Her lip trembled. That's not true. It is true, I said. My voice low, but firm. And I have proof of everything. The Reddit post, the messages, the voicemail you left my mom, even Benjamin's story. All documented. All timestamped. So, if you're planning to escalate this into some public crusade, just know I'll respond. And this time, I won't be anonymous. Her face flushed red. She glanced toward Brooke, then back at me. You're threatening me. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. She sat back, crossing her arms. Her voice dropped, bitterness seeping through. You really think this little girl beside you is going to make you happy? After everything we had? Brooke smiled sweetly. Oh, I don't need to make him happy. He already is. I'm just here to make sure you don't spin your lies again. Chloe laughed, sharp and bitter. Wow, you've really changed, Liam. You used to care about people's feelings. No, I said. I used to care about your feelings more than I cared about myself. She went quiet. You don't get to rewrite the ending, I said. You don't get to show up after months of damage and act like the savior in your own mess. Then I reached into my bag and slid a manila envelope across the table. She didn't touch it. What is that? She asked. Everything you've done. Printed. Documented. Backed up in 3 places. The smear campaign, the manipulation, all of it. If you want to keep escalating, I'll use it. But if you walk away today, if you really want closure, it stays sealed. She stared at it, her hands trembling. I'm giving you a choice, I said. Something you never gave me. She didn't say anything for a long time. Her gaze fell to the table, then to the envelope, then to me. There was no more mask, no more rehearsed sadness. Just silence. Finally, she stood. You win, she whispered. I'll stop. I didn't reply. She walked out without another word. Over the next few weeks, everything got quiet again. No more messages, no new Reddit posts, no weird phone calls to my mom or cousin. It was like she vanished. Benjamin messaged me once more, just to say thank you. That after our meeting, she tried to reach out to him again, and he blocked her. He was moving to another city, starting fresh. Like me. My family, especially my mom, took some time to rebuild trust with, but it came slowly, authentically. She apologized again, not just for doubting me, but for expecting me to be the bigger person when I was the only one bleeding. Brooke and I grew closer, stronger. We took a road trip up the coast that spring, camped under the stars, talked about the future. She never tried to fix me, never treated me like some broken man she had to glue back together. She just stood beside me, let me grow. At work, I got another promotion. I gave a talk at a local college about finding resilience after setbacks. I shared my story, not with names, not with bitterness, but with truth. And one evening, I found myself back on my porch, watching the lake again. This time, it wasn't about mourning the past. It was about witnessing the peace I'd earned. Chloe never reached out again, not directly. But about 6 months later, a mutual acquaintance mentioned she'd moved out of state. New job, new circle. Her social media had gone silent. No more healing posts. No more cryptic quotes. Maybe she learned something. Maybe she didn't. It didn't matter because I had. I learned that boundaries are love. Love for yourself. That silence is power when it's intentional. That revenge doesn't have to be loud or cruel. It can be calm, quiet. I see it with truth. And that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well while they watch everything slip through their fingers and never giving them a second chance to touch your life again. What would you have done if your past came back to haunt you like that?